This is the Commission on the Status of Elections meeting for December 7th, 2021. So 5, I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Chesson?
Present.
Clark?
Here.
Dunkerley?
Here.
Edwards?
Present.
Hertan?
Present.
And Lomio.
Present.
You have a quorum.
And could you display the agenda?
You should have all gotten a copy in the mail, but I can. Give me a minute.
Yeah, it'll take me a minute to get that. So I do have that.
I
copy.
actually can't do the agenda because I have to take notes.
No
Steve,
problem.
is that something you could help with?
No, it'll take me about 60 seconds to get the agenda.
Okay.
So sorry for that delay. All right. I've got it. All right. So the first thing is for us to accept the Board of Supervisors findings that we're still in a state of emergency. Is that something we need to approve each month?
You do.
All right, so is that a motion that needs to be made to accept the Board of Supervisor findings?
I believe so. We'll just do
All
a
right.
quick question in a second.
I'll move that we accept the Board of Supervisors findings that circumstances of a state of emergency continue to exist.
Second.
All right. Any
Great.
comment? No comments, so go ahead and take the poll.
All righty. Commissioner Chesson?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Dunkerley?
Aye.
Edwards?
Aye.
Hertan?
Aye.
And Lomio.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go on to public comment. Do we have any hands raised?
We do. So there is one commenter in the audience. One moment while we get the timer set up. The name is Luke Milner. So Luke, once the timer gets started, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Let me give you permission to speak. And the timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hi, thank you. My name is Luke Milner. I'm a resident of Sunnyvale. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak. I previously addressed the commission once just to show support for open source voting. And I know that there is support for that among you, and you know all about that, and I'm grateful for that. And I think we're making good progress towards a pilot of that technology. But I'm worried now that the county is experimenting with internet voting. I want to use my time to make a case for you in the county to reject internet voting. And when the time for comments is passed tonight, I'd love to hear your thoughts about the status of that initiative and the merits of the idea. I'm an engineer, so I'm not against new technology, but different systems have different priorities. And I think that for a voting system, credibility ought to be the priority, which means really that transparency is an important thing. Internet voting is illegal in California. I think for that reason, it would create new security targets in a system that's already under attack, and it would create an opportunity to coerce seniors and the disabled and leave no paper records for auditing. In contrast, open source voting only adds more transparency to the simple legacy system. It's already legal in California, and now it's possible to run a pilot for free instead of spending millions on the internet voting pilot. So as a resident of the county, I just want to ask you to please support open source voting instead of internet voting. Thanks.
So thank you for your comment, and you may be aware that because it was an agendized item, unless that is later, that we can't comment upon your comments other to say thank you for your point of view, and I think you'll find a welcome home here, but that's as far as we could discuss right now. So nobody else has a hand raised?
Looks like, it looks like there was another hand raised, but they put their hand down. So I believe that concludes public comment.
All right. So our next item is to approve the minutes of the October meeting. Is there a motion or any
Sure.
changes?
Move to approve.
A second?
I have a comment. I'm trying to find my hand. There we go.
There were a few errors that need fixing. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, in the minutes, and I should probably find what page that is actually on. Let me bring that up. But it was under item 8 in the agenda.
Yes.
This is the resolution. Go through the packet. Item 8, which is on packet page 16, PDF page 16. Commissioner Chesson provided an overview of the suggested edits to the existing form. Discussion ensued relating to the formatting of the form and the public's ability to understand the form. That part is fine. It's the last sentence. Chairperson Hertan recommended that Commissioner Edwards provide the form to members of the public for input. That doesn't make sense to me because she was not present at that meeting.
All right, so it is accurate. Although she wasn't there, I felt that it needs some input from ordinary people, and that Commissioner Edwards would be the person perhaps to try to collect that feedback, because she was involved in this item in the past. I know it was you and her perhaps, but anyway, that was the reason for my request, that although it's an accurate record of our meeting.
Okay, then I guess I dropped the ball. I need to get together with Swanee offline as an ad hoc committee to work on this.
Yes, this was something that, thank you, Mr. Hertan. Yeah, this was something you all had talked about, and though Swanee was not there, she was voluntold, volunteered, as you have many wonderful connections in the community, Swanee, and I know that was talked about. So I apologize. I was going to send you an email earlier, Swanee, but I just got swamped. So
It's perfectly all right. Although the Department of Motor Vehicles is not my expertise, I am kind of not involved in my regular committee, so I'd be happy to explore this. So we'll talk offline, okay?
Yeah, shoot me an email after the meeting and we'll set up a time to meet.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, and then I have two corrections. Packet page 18, which is page 5 of 6 of the minutes. At the top of the page, inquired from Chairperson Hertan. Ms. Boucher stated that she'll provide the report related to recall election scheduled for the Finance FGOC on December. So it doesn't quite make sense to me. Does it make sense to anybody else? Because it doesn't say which recall election.
I'm happy to amend that if you all can, if Mr. Hertan, perhaps you could give me some more clarification.
So
Or Shannon, Mr.
the problem is the tail end of that second line, scheduled for the FGOC. Not quite sure how that relates. So the recall election that I was interested in perhaps were the school board recalls. It potentially might have been the governor, but I don't remember. And I don't know what the reference to FGOC is.
Yeah, that was that at the December 20th, Monday now, December FGOC meeting, we are bringing a report back on two items that a board member previously requested. So that was me just letting everyone know at the last meeting that we were asked to do that and bring that in December.
Okay, so do you want to review the way that sentence is worded to see if it could be edited slightly? Because it doesn't quite translate to a meaningful sentence to me anyway.
Would be,
Scheduled for review by the Finance and Government Operations Committee. Does that make sense?
Yes, but also it should have a subject of who the recall election referred to. If that was the governor's recall,
yeah, the September California governor's recall election.
so those are the two changes to suggest that be edited to say the governor's recall, the September whatever, gubernatorial recall election.
Okay,
scheduled-
September gubernatorial re-election,
No,
I
it's a
would-
recall.
recall. Okay,
And
Scheduled for review by,
right, yes, thank you.
scheduled
scheduled for review by the Finance and Government Operations Committee.
Okay, so I'll insert September gubernatorial recall scheduled for review by the FGOC.
There you go.
Yes. And I thought I had a second change, but I no longer see that. So I think that's the end of my suggested changes to the minutes.
I'll amend my motion to approve as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, I'll second it.
Let's see, I don't know who is first, Chesson or Swanee.
Chesson was first.
Okay.
But I'll be happy to defer to Swanee.
So
I
whoever
think
said,
Swanee got one before. I'll do you, Steve.
Okay.
yeah, you get a
Okay.
gold coin when you second.
Okay, so approve as amended. I will be able to fix that shortly. Okay,
Let's vote.
so Commissioner Chesson,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Dunkerley,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Bertan,
Aye.
and Lomio.
Aye.
Great, thank you.
All right, move on to item 5. Discuss and approve the Citizen Advisory Commission on Election meeting scheduled for calendar year 2022. Are there any comments about that schedule?
Yeah.
So it appears that it's always the first Tuesday of the month, which
Right.
is our practice.
Yeah, but between October and December, it says, it repeats the word June, and that needs to be changed to November.
I think that was the issue. Yes, thank you.
I will fix that. Wait, do I have 2 Junes?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, the primary and then the general got cut and pasted inappropriately by accident, yes. All right, any other comment? Let's call the vote.
okay, I think we need a motion and a second. Oh, or
Yeah.
does Vice Chair Clark have your hand up for something, a comment?
I just had a question. This meeting schedule assumes that the board approved our request to meet more frequently. I assume that happened or will happen.
Yes,
and we're
that
just-
will happen. I believe that's going on the Board of Supervisors agenda on December 14th. And I don't anticipate it will not be approved. So if it is not approved, I will let you know. I doubt that though, so.
Got it. Okay.
Well, in any event, we can add to the motion that we approve the January meeting independent of whether the supervisors approve the full calendar year to be a monthly meeting? We need to establish with certainty our January meeting. So the motion should take into account the two conditions of the supervisors approving the monthly meetings or that they don't. So that would be the ideal motion.
To make it cleaner, you could also call a special meeting in January.
Yes, we could, but the problem is it's the first Tuesday of January.
Correct. Council, might you have an opinion?
If we approve the monthly schedule, we can always amend it, in light of some unexpected overruling by the Board of Supervisors.
So we have council present.
Yeah, I don't see an issue with the amended motion that confirms the date of the January meeting and then approves the rest of the agenda.
Subject to
the decision by the board. I think that's fine.
All right, let's go with that.
Okay.
Will the maker of the
Can I
motion?
make a motion? Do we already have?
You're cutting in
Bonnie,
and
you might
out.
have to turn your
a
camera
motion
off.
to not. Okay. Yep, we've been here before. Anyway, I was going to make a motion, but I'm so confused now. Somebody else can do it.
I can do it. I'll move that we adopt that we set the next meeting for January 4th, 2022, and that we adopt the proposed meeting schedule as proposed by staff, subject to the approval by the Board of Supervisors.
Second.
I don't think that's quite the way we want it worded.
Or I guess staff would bring this back to us if the Board of Supervisors doesn't allow us to meet monthly.
So let me suggest that it be worded something like the following, that we're approving the January meeting date on the list and the balance of the schedule subject to approval by the Board of Supervisors.
So moved.
Second, is there a second?
Second.
Let's see. Okay, so Dunker Lee seconded. I'm sorry, I was typing. Who motioned?
I did, Chris.
Okay. So it's approved as amended to fix the clerical error, the 2 Junes, and then approving the schedule with the January meeting.
We're approving January and the balance subject to approval, adoption by the Board of Supervisors.
Okay. I think that sounds good. And that was Clark moved and Dunker Lee seconded. All right, I will take it to a vote.
Before you take a vote, I see everyone's
Yes, sorry.
hand up a very long time. I don't know who's monitoring hands, but I see them easily on my iPad.
Sorry to interrupt. I just had something quick because I'm scheduled to report on the legislation, but I just wanted to ask if I can go sooner than later since I have to log off by 7:30. That's okay.
We'll take you next, right after this vote.
Yay.
Okay, so I'll go for the vote. Commissioner Chesson?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Dunker Lee?
Aye.
Edwards?
Aye.
Hurtan?
Aye.
And Lumio.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And would you care to give an opinion about whether we need a motion to change the order of the agenda?
That's at the discretion of the chair.
All right, then I would like to change the agenda so that the legislative presentation can be made now.
Okay, thank you guys so much. So there was no legislative report, obvious, because they are not in session, but I did update or upload a document. I hope you guys all have it that has all the new laws that were signed and just a summary of each one. there are quite a few that I just like 3 pages. I don't know if you guys need a chance to get to that section. I'm not going to go through each one, but just the highlights of the ones that we've been talking about throughout the year. One of them, we were talking about motor voter. That one went into play. The Secretary of State's going to establish a new program. The bill that we were talking about, SB 35, that talked about electioneering, that one was signed. So that one is going to affect our office in ways that we need to change our procedures and how things go. But one of the bigger ones was SB 594, and that was the bill related to redistricting. So it establishes dates and when we're going to get all of the maps. So if you guys have questions on any of those, I can try to answer, or Shannon, Matt, Virginia can help me. But that's all. It's just a summary of the bills that were signed. For our meeting in January, I will ask if you guys have any that you guys want us to track throughout the year, or start tracking, or have any ideas of, make sure you look into this one. So if you guys can bring that to January when they get back in session, so I'll have a new update for you come the beginning of the year.
So my interest is, so thank you for that. And my interest is on the procedures for recall elections.
Recalls, okay.
Other than local recall, not just the state recall.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you could watch AB 1416, it's the Ballot Disclose Act.
Got it. Thank
Which
you guys.
might already be on the list, but because it's a 2-year bill, so it might already be on the list.
I think that one is.
Okay.
Okay.
And,
thank you guys.
I am interested, following the speakers, the attendees' remarks, that if there is any legislation regarding revision to internet voting, I think the commission would be interested in following that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? If not, we'll go on to item 6.
Okay. Thank you.
So item 6 says clerk of the board.
Yes, and so that's me. We were talking a little bit about this before the meeting, but relating to the ranked choice voting, which was approved by the commission at the October meeting, is going on to FGOC on Monday, December 20th. And the link for that meeting is on the web. I'm not part of the team that works on committee or BOS, so but the link is very easy to find. So the link will be available. That agenda will publish probably on the 13th, if not the 14th.
And do one of the commissioners wish to be the certain representative of CACE at that meeting in case there are questions?
Yeah, I would like to be.
You got it. You get your second gold coin.
And I did have some questions as long as we're discussing this agenda item. Stephanie, does any more work need to be done on the legislative file document? Because I know I had sent you some language for the recommendation and background.
You did, and that was extremely helpful. Thank you. I mostly just copied and pasted that into the ledge file. So if I haven't heard if anything more is needed, and if it is, I will contact you and let you know.
Okay. And will all of the items, all the materials that we had at our October meeting that were attached to that particular item, are those also going to be attached to this agenda item when it goes to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, good. So they'll see everything that we saw.
Yes. And it might go on consent, it might not. It depends on when the agenda is published. So
yeah. Okay.
So thank you for following up on that, Steve.
Thank you.
And item 7 is somewhat related. I guess you're going to be reporting to us on the status of the recommendation on SB 286.
Yes, SB 286 has still not been scheduled for a hearing. The first two hearings were canceled. And I guess I should contact the author to see what the status of that is. But I'd like to continue this to our next agenda so I can let you know if there's any progress made on it at that time.
And Stephanie can make note that we want to put that into the January agenda.
Will do.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. And Chris, we're going to hear your report relating to the remote voter project.
Yeah, can people hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so first I want to thank you for allowing me to speak before you today. Just an administrative point, there was a document attached to this agenda item. It's a 55-page document, and my cover letter for it, it's the last page. It's just a one page. And at the bottom of that, it has a sort of a table of contents of the documents that are in those pages. So I want to speak with you about a project I found out about recently that your county is in some sense already involved in, because your county representative voted to approve it. And also, I'm not an official representative of this project or anything, but it's something that I learned a lot about recently. And I think it's something that you should know about. And I think maybe what would be appropriate is if, based on what I tell you, if it's a topic that's important to you, maybe at a future meeting, you could have a more formal hearing. And based on what I've told you, you can sort of know who you should invite to that item. And so, you know, my own commission, I'm a member of the San Francisco Elections Commission in San Francisco. I've been on there for 8 years. And we had a very extensive discussion about this topic at our meeting a few weeks ago. And we were also learning about it for the first time then. And at the conclusion of the discussion, we voted to send a letter to our Board of Supervisors expressing our concern about the project, not just because it's something that we weren't told about, but also because the project is about internet voting. And we've had a policy position against internet voting as a commission since 2017. So we, in our letter, we basically asked the Board of Supervisors to conduct investigatory hearings into this project, you know, including why we weren't told, but also to, you know, just to give people a chance to voice their opinion about the project. So I'll kind of explain to you now what this project is all about. It's a little bit complicated, but I'll just spend a couple minutes kind of giving you an overview and then give you a chance to ask questions. So there's a regional governmental organization called the Bay Area Urban Areas Security Initiative. And it's an organization made up of 12 counties in the San Francisco Bay Area. And their purpose is to basically apply for and accept and administer grants to the Department of Homeland Security. And the Department of Homeland Security gives out hundreds of millions of dollars of these grants each year to various, you know, regions around the country. And our own Bay Area Urban Areas Security Initiative, they got in the order of, I think, like $35 million a year or so. So back in 2020, this grant program, which is administered by the Department of Homeland Security, they said one of the topics can be on election security. So back then, before that grant period, some department heads within San Francisco approached the Bay Area UASI and proposed that one of the projects be related to internet voting. And specifically, they proposed that they wanted to design, develop, and pilot an internet voting program for voters with disabilities. And they wanted to pilot the system across the whole 12-county region. And the reason I'm here before you today is Santa Clara is one of those 12 counties, and you have a couple representatives on that body. So the way the Bay Area UASI is organized, it's has a Brown Act body, kind of like yourself. It's 11 members called the Approval Authority, and you have a county representative, and there's also a representative of San Jose as a city, and San Francisco has its own representative. But back in March 2020, I think these projects, this internet voting project was unanimously approved by all the members of the Approval Authority. And I think really, I'm not sure that the approval authority members really understand what they were getting into. I think a lot of the members are, associated with sheriff's offices or departments of emergency management and don't really have experience or expertise in elections like you do. So this project was approved back then, and it's been moving forward since then. And one of the unusual things about the grant application to the Department of Homeland Security, and I've included that, there's a project narrative that it's just 2 pages. It says that this project is being used to prevent terrorism, and it's sort of a very strange way to frame things, but it just kind of like raises another red flag to me. And so take ourselves to the future, to now, like back in April, an RFP was issued around this project, and a $1.5 million RFP to basically design and build this project, this internet voting system. And yeah, I should have said earlier, the grant was for $1.5 million. So I think, once this project is developed, their plan is to pilot this across the 12-county region. And if this is something that you think that your own committee would have a position on, or if it's something that concerns you, I think it would be worth you, learning more about this and maybe expressing your opinion on this project as to, whether you think it's a good idea. So we could talk a little bit more about what's concerning about internet voting, but I guess I'll just kind of open it up for questions if anyone has any.
Yeah, I have a question. You said that there is somebody from Santa Clara County that was placed on this commission. Do you have that name or that person's name?
Yeah, I do. And if you read the cover letter on the last page, I did include that information for you. The person's name is Dana Reed. They're the director of the Santa Clara County Office of Emergency Management. And then the city of San Jose also has a representative. Their name is Ray Riordan, and they're the director of the San Jose Office of Emergency Management. Okay,
and where could I find more information as to why internet voting opposes terrorism? I mean, that's a pretty big leap in my mind.
Oh, it sure is. I think that's a question for the people that are running the project, and that's one of the reasons we're trying to get the Board of Supervisors to look into it. But yeah, I mean, that's a big question, right?
Okay, very, very good. Now that I have names, I will be getting in touch with these people and asking that question. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Craig, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
My sense of the relationship or connection to terrorism is that they're trying to develop a voting system that they think will be less vulnerable to cyber attack. That would be my guess. But my question is just, and if it's not possible, I understand, but can you give us for those Luddites among us, can you help us understand why internet voting is as dangerous as it is?
Sure. But before I answer that, I want to mention, I should have said earlier that this Bay Area Urban Area Security Initiative, their purpose is basically to prevent terrorism and to address emergency catastrophes. So I think maybe they're trying to link this grant to their, the scope of their organization. Mm-hmm. But as far as the dangers of internet voting, I mean, it's sort of the consensus among the election security community in the country that it's basically a problem that can't be done securely in the foreseeable future. And in fact, there's a document that's sort of an internal government document that was put together by the Department of Homeland Security, the Election Assistance Commission, the FBI, and NIST that outlines all these risks. And just so you know, like one of the problems with voting over the internet is that you can't really even trust your own device. Like you don't know if there's malware on your device that could be making your screen show one thing, but then it's sending in some other information into the remote server. So they're just at every layer, there's really a lot of unsolvable problems about how do you know that what you're trying to do is actually being done and not being interfered with by a malicious actor.
Has any effort been made to reach out to Ms. Reed or this body to alert them to this problem?
Dana Reed is a man.
Okay.
So in San Francisco, we're just reaching out to the Board of Supervisors, and I think we are going to have our own hearing next Wednesday. But the problem is that we don't really have authority over this group, and we just don't really think that we're the right body to be reaching out to them. I think if things had been done more appropriately, they would have reached out in advance to kind of get feedback on this proposal before they went forward with it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So I happen to know Dana Reed. I've been heavily involved since 2010 in the ham radio emergency organization, as well as the CERT organization. And as Chris points out, the Bay Area or all the UASCs around the country have their mission is twofold. One is the issue of the terrorism, but the other is emergency preparedness, resilience. And so I worked with the San Jose emergency ham radio groups, and we received UASC funds for equipment to help improve the quality of communications in the event that regular communication channels are unavailable. So it's a well-regarded and very generous organization. So look upon them as informed people. Yes, they may not be aware of the subtleties of internet voting, but one of the things that I have not done is to look at the draft, if there is, of the RFP, because part of the issue will be to have a documentation that shows the public why this would be a dangerous precedent at this time of technology. So that if the result of the study, this grant would be the contractor would look at implementation issues, and in their report about that, it would point out all the pros and cons, then it would be a very positive grant. If it is not inclusive to that degree, then it really wouldn't be satisfactory. So part of my interest is to understand more about the content of the RFP. And second, I think it's an appropriate thing for us to request of the Board of Supervisors, Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, that we be permitted to have a remote meeting of our technology committee of this board, of this commission, so that we could, both the three of us, as well as public members, have an opportunity to discuss it at length at a technical level. So I'm going to ask that the clerk of the board request permission from the Board of Supervisors to have our technology committee, or whatever its full name is, permitted to engage in a Zoom, internet, a remote meeting for the purpose of this particular discussion. Are there any other comments?
Yes, I have a comment. Like you, I'm also a member of CERT in the city of Morgan Hill. And at this point, I don't see how remote voting or voting by computer can be equated to protecting us against terrorism. The only link I could see is possibly having a method to vote if something, if we were invaded by a foreign body, But right now, the internet is one of the least protected places to carry on information in most instances, and especially voting. I just wouldn't trust an internet vote under any circumstances. That's just my opinion.
So my response to that is this is a technical issue. Certainly there are values that are involved and risks, but certainly the basis of a decision or a conclusion has to be the technology aspect of it. And as I said, it would be of great value to understand the dimensions, the scope of the RFP. So I can't say in advance that I'm against it until I read the RFP.
May I go next?
Yes, please do, Steve.
Sure. Yeah, the RFP was attached in the agenda packet.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to read it.
Understood, but I just want to make sure people realize it is there. So, people can store it. And Chris, I really do appreciate all the detailed information that you included in your transmittal to us. I wasn't able to read the RFP in detail, but I did read some of the other material in detail. And I noticed that your elections commission has an actual resolution on internet voting. And I would like for us to put on a future agenda discussion if we should adopt a resolution on internet voting. And I'm also very curious to know, it sounded like the city and county of San Francisco, Chris, please correct me if I'm wrong, that this contract is being managed by the city and county of San Francisco. So I'm curious what role, if any, does our county or does the city of San Jose play in terms of interacting with this contract and with the contractor?
So to answer your question, so San Francisco's relationship to Bay Area WASI is that we're it's called a fiscal agent for the body. So that means we sort of handle all the contracts and the board approves the money and so on. But I think really at this point, Santa Clara's involvement is number one, as a, sitting on the approval authority, your representative can participate in those meetings. And they, for example, they voted to approve it in March 2020. And then I think at a certain point in this project, your county is going to be asked whether you'd like to participate as a pilot county, when the system is developed. So then you could either say yes or no to that. And I don't know exactly who would make that decision within your county, but.
Yeah.
So I will contact Dana Reed tomorrow to understand what Santa Clara County expects to do with this.
Well, I know we don't have subpoena power, but I would really like to have Mr. Reed and, if possible, Mr. Riordan attend our next meeting to give us a report. So we can ask them questions as a group.
That's a great suggestion. Yeah, I think I can arrange to have, I'll let you know whether we can get Dana's commitment. I don't know Riordan. He's relatively new. I worked with his predecessor who moved on to a very lucrative job in Oklahoma.
And I would like the agenda item for next month to say and make recommendations, if any, so that we do have the ability to make and pass motions.
Sounds like a good idea. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the request that I'm making to have the Board of Supervisors permit us to hold remote technology committee, subcommittee meetings?
I have no problem with that. We would definitely want to get more information about this whole project. And my understanding is that they've awarded they submitted an RFP. They got bids back. They've selected somebody, but they're still negotiating the contracts. They haven't actually announced who they've awarded the contract to. Chris, do you have any insight into the progress of those negotiations as to when they expect to complete them?
Yeah, so so my understanding is that I'm not sure if the number of bidders is public or not. I do know that information, but they selected a winning bidder, and the bidders, their name is 21 Tech, one word, 21 Tech. Oh. And they're sort of like one of these organizations that subcontracts out work. They bid on these projects within San Francisco. And when I spoke on the phone with some of the people involved in the project, I spoke with them about a month ago, and they told me that the contract would be signed within the next couple months. But we were asking the Board of Supervisors to intervene and see if they could put those negotiations on hold, even though they already do have approval to sign the contract. So it could happen potentially any day, but we've asked them to intervene and to see if maybe there's a way they could at least slow it down a little bit until there's been a chance to have hearings.
And the money involved, is any of that coming from the city of County of San Francisco?
It's all from the federal grant.
Oh, okay, it's all from the federal grant. Okay. So they're playing with other people's money. Thank you.
Chris,
Don't forget,
stand up.
I just want to make one comment.
Peter, you went on mute.
Thank you. So it's up to the board of Bay Area UASI to make those decisions. Any one county doesn't have the authority to suspend it. It would have to be a motion or a vote by the entire board for which it had to have a majority vote. But that's just my opinion. Are there somebody else have their hand up?
I do.
Go ahead, Chris.
So thank you, Chris, very much for your presentation. I didn't know this was going on, and this was super helpful, especially reading through it last night. I mean, just to summarize, I appreciate the concern here, but I guess there's an RFP that's been issued. They're going to sign something any day. There will be a study done. There will be results from that. There will be reports from that. I'm not one to prevent people from studying anything, frankly. I would, and so if we want to have our technology committee or whomever meet after there's a report back and information that we can study, or when there's a proposal to maybe have Santa Clara County, if one of the goals that comes out of the study is to have Santa Clara County participate in that, then I would certainly hope that our body would be a part of that discussion and that decision. But it sounds like that's a ways off, like the study actually has to be done. So while I appreciate this being brought to our attention, I don't see a need for us to sort of intervene at this stage. Like the RFP is moving forward. There's going to be a study, there's going to be data and reports that come out of that. And I would personally like to review all those reports when they do come back. I don't know what the timeline is for that. And then we can get involved and make decisions about facts and data that we have from the report and public comment and all those other things. But I don't necessarily, aside from receiving this information and becoming aware of it, I don't really see any actions that we need to take right now, because I don't think they will frankly have any impact. This is going to move forward. There will be a study and reports that come out of it. And I think when those are out is the time when we start to get more involved. So I appreciate knowing about it. I just don't think this is the time for us to try and stop this for some reason. I would love to study any voting technology. I don't think it's right to take anything off the table until you have all the results and information you want.
And in any case, it'll be county by county decision to adopt that or not. And of course, as you all have observed, the state law would have to be changed to permit it as well. So there are lots of checks and balances going forward. And my philosophy is the same as the vice chair.
And I agree. And that's why I also would not support adopting some resolution that says no internet voting ever. Like, I just don't think that's the right approach. Like, technology changes, things change over time. It's just not worth it to make a statement like that.
Yes, exactly. Although there's a value of providing comment from this commission about issues that we would be interested in seeing as a result of the study. So
absolutely,
I think it's reasonable for us to try to have a technology committee meeting that could provide some input to the contractor. Anyway, are there other comments?
Yeah, I put my hand back up.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you refer to like packet page 60, where they describe the scope of work. It includes designing, building, and testing a modular internet-based solution. So they aren't just studying. Additional deliverables. Anyway, I could easily see this thing going off the rails where this group that doesn't really understand computer security and the fact that the designing a system that allows voting that is both anonymous and secure is fundamentally not really possible. It's not like a bank transaction where the money's going out of your account and the person you're giving the money to, they can tell you that they got the money or they didn't get the money and it went elsewhere and there's a forensic trail. There is no, the only forensic trail we have with voting is paper. If once it goes over the internet, like someone said earlier, you could have malware on your computer, shows you what your ballot looks like, but sends a totally different ballot to the destination. There could be man-in-the-middle attacks. There could be malware at the other end. All sorts of things that can go wrong when you do not have a paper record that you can then audit to prove the voting. And I know people talk about blockchain. We could spend an hour talking about blockchain. But I could see a bunch of naive people with a lot of federal money designing a system and including it. One of the things in this scope of work is talking to the Secretary of State's office about governance issues, maybe proposing legislation, and then maybe they get the law changed. And so without proper oversight from people who actually understand these issues, I could see this thing going totally out of control. So I think it's very important that we get involved earlier and rather not just, oh, it's just a study, let them go ahead and study it. It's more than that.
Steve, I agree with you 100%. I'm just going to butt it in here, but I agree with you. This is how we got California high-speed rail. Somebody had an idea, and the next thing you know, we're pouring billions into the dirt in the valley. So it sneaks up on you, this stuff. And I, my first reaction to this is, oh boy, here we go. And I agree with you. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I have my hand up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I take Peter and Chris's point that we don't want to prematurely or heavy-handedly preclude research or study and into these things, and the technology is evolving, and so maybe at some time in the future, in ways that we can't even imagine now, it might somehow become secure. That said, I do think there's an awful lot of money, $1.5 million, that could very likely be spent needlessly. I mean, it's at this point, and given the current level of technology, we already know that we don't need any further study. I would submit to know that internet voting is simply not possible to do securely and anonymously with our current technology. So I think there is value in encouraging some sort of hitting some kind of pause button before we spend another $1.5 million, on something that could be devoted to something else much more useful to our election security. Food for thought.
Other comments? Thank you, Chris. Great.
Yeah, I was just going to say I would agree with you, Commissioner Dunkley, if the RP hadn't been issued and like the ship has sailed and we have a limited amount of time and resources, and to go try and throw up all sorts of flags in sort of some rogue manner as an election commission to try and stop something that we had a single presentation on, I just think seems, I don't know, maybe my time is more limited than others, but I just don't feel, I feel like that's and I prejudging things.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't suggest necessarily that CACE be the one, but I think that we can reach out to the Board of Supervisors, alert them to the fact that, hey, this is going on and you need to pay attention to this because a lot of money is about to be spent, and then let somebody else of more proper authority actually deal with it.
So let me interject my comment, and that is I'd like to have that discussion with Dana Reed to understand
Great idea.
what the position of Santa Clara County. So the Board of Supervisors is going to look to the Office of Emergency Management for their opinion about it. That's for sure. And as you point out, both Riordan and Dana Reed are representatives to UASI from Santa Clara County. So let me tell you, they're not dummies. They are sophisticated people, and they have a number of advisors who have just as much skepticism and skill that Steve has, because I work with them and I know they're equal to the task. Maybe politically, their motivations that I don't understand. In any case, I'd like to hear what Dana Reed has to say. And I'll bring that back as communication, which Stephanie can forward to everybody. Craig, there's some problem with your mic because we're not
Excellent
quite
idea.
hearing you.
Excellent idea. I just had myself on mute. Sorry.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Stephanie has her hand up.
Yeah, Peter, I don't know if you can see people's hands.
No, I can't.
That's
Only
okay.
Stephanie
Thank you,
probably.
Swanee. I just want to interject just for some process to let you all know. First of all, this is really great that you're all excited about this, and I think it definitely is a robust discussion. Two things, because we are still in the middle of a global pandemic, none of the subcommittees can meet at this time. However, I will say that I think that, and just looking at my calendar, to call a special meeting, we literally have maybe 2 dates that are available for COB for a special meeting in January. I think we're going into the holidays. I think Peter brings a really good point where this is probably a larger discussion that needs to happen before you go running off to create a special meeting, because you need to know what you're talking about and what the special meeting is about. I think Vice Chairperson Clark made some great points, but I will tell you that as far as COB capacity, we just don't have it right now to do a special meeting. We just don't have it. I will say that you are welcome to approach your individual supervisors in the next few weeks on this issue, as well as you have a wonderful resource. You have the Registrar of Voters, Shannon Bechet, in this meeting. Shannon is the head of the department. You can use her as a resource. So, well, I just wanted to kind of get that out there, and again, just be very mindful of the time of year it is, capacity, staff limits, research, RFPs, before you go try to get a special meeting. But I think you guys have some excellent points. Thank you.
So what I'll do is I'll reach out to my supervisor, who happens to be Wasserman, and several of the others that I happen to know, to request that we be given permission to have a subcommittee meeting, which is not a special meeting of this body, that doesn't require any participation by the clerk of the board's office. So it's just ourselves. So I'll pursue that as well as the contact Dana Reed. Further comments from anyone?
Yeah, I have my hand up.
Go ahead.
Stephanie made a very good point, and which leads me to ask Shannon, were you aware of any of this before this evening?
No, we have not been, I have not been contacted by this group.
Good to know. Thank you.
All right. There's no further comment. We can move on.
I just want to make sure that we do have it on next month's agenda to have this item on next month's agenda with the ability to make recommendations.
And I think we need to take public comment still.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
We do, actually. Thank you. Good catch. There are 2 public commenters. So one moment while we get that ready. I think the first public commenter was Brent Turner. Brent, I'm going to allow you to talk, and the timer will begin when you start speaking.
Hello, am I audible?
Yep, go for it.
Great, thank you. And thanks for the commission for taking up this issue. As I think everybody here is aware, my advocacy is primarily focused on open source election system advocacy, but I was brought back to the Pell Center a few years back to be a panelist with a fellow Sean Canuck, who is with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and another fellow, B. David Mussington, who I think currently is the Executive Assistant Director at CACE. And it was discussed there that I think Commissioner Dunkerley cited the science quite adeptly. Currently, with the state of technology, the foreseeable future, it does not hold a place for internet voting. And, this is not something that we enjoy. It would be great if that was not the circumstance. But unfortunately, I think the grand majority of all scientific technology experts agree that it's a non-starter. So to go down this rabbit hole, it would be an interesting waste in the public's opinion of our money. And then you also have mission creep and other things that were mentioned. The way that this unfurled in San Francisco was particularly disturbing, with the lack of transparency around the RFP process. And interestingly, the words open source were utilized by the groups receiving the money and petitioning for the money as if it was an open source project, which is really yet to be determined. They also threw the blockchain word around, and the concern is that now we're getting away from the real focus that we've all worked for decades, which is getting transparent and secure election systems moving forward. And now we all have to take our time to deal with this issue. Unfortunately, historically, the DHS has not really been completely on top of the voting system technology information. And so, I applaud you if you can get the county involved in the conversation. I applaud all efforts for that. And thanks again for your hard work over the years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the next, so that was Mr. Turner. The next speaker is Jim Soper. Jim, I'm asking you to unmute, and the timer will start when you begin speaking. And
okay, there, can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, great. My name's Jim Soper. I'm co-chair of the National Voting Rights Task Force, and I'm a programmer. I've taught other programmers how to program smartphones, among other things. And I've written a website called countedascast.org, COUNTEDASCAST.org. And on the left side, you'll see a menu of articles, including several on internet voting. Very briefly said, internet voting is paperless. So there's no way to audit it. There's no way for the voter to verify their vote. This just does not belong here. Maybe long after I'm dead, something will happen that I can't foresee and it becomes feasible. but as far as I'm concerned, not in my lifetime. Point two, USC is just outside of their mandate, way outside. I'm going to read off the top of the front page of their website. Bay Area Urban Security Initiative sustains and improves regional capacity to prevent, protect against, mitigate to, respond to, and recover from terrorist attacks and catastrophic disasters. End. 1, they protect against terrorist attacks, and 2, catastrophic disasters. 3, there is no 3. They have nothing to do with elections. That's not in their mandate. And so they're going way outside. And what the county can do, your county can do is go back and say, hey, this isn't right. You're off doing work in areas you're not supposed to be doing. And this isn't right. The other thing was that on the RFP, it says, because there are officials who say this has nothing to do with internet voting. I've heard that, and I've heard that several times. But to quote from the RFP, how much time? The project will enable guaranteed secure transmission of ballots from voters to the election departments. That's internet voting, folks. Hello. And later on, they said they want to design a system to electronically sign the ballot and electronically submit the ballot to a county election department. Again, that's internet voting. And what other people are saying is just nonsense. This is way outside of their mandate, and I think the county needs to go back to UASI and say, no, you're doing stuff you're not supposed to be doing. Thank you very much for all the time you're putting in.
Managed to do it within 3 minutes. Congratulations. Additional comments? All right. So if there are no additional comments, we'll be bringing this up again in January, and hopefully we'll have expert witnesses available to take questions and to provide another understanding or a different understanding of what's being attempted. Keep in mind, some 30 to 40% of the American voting population believes that the last presidential election was stolen, that ballots were manufactured, etc., paper ballots. So there's no question that the state of the use of internet for transmission and the use of computers at the tail end, at the endpoints, are subject to a great deal of malware and manipulation. But, you know, we have all kinds of great bodies that are advising everybody, and that's the RAND Corporation. It's, you know, here it's SRI and so on. So there are lots of people who will be able to weigh in and critique the results of the study. So I personally am not afraid of it, and I feel the way Chris did. So I don't feel a sense of danger, maybe because I'm whistling in the dark as I'm walking through the graveyard. In any case, if there are no further comments, we'll move on to the next item, which is item 9, receive a report from the Registrar of Voters relating to the status of current voting equipment.
Good evening, Commissioners. Matt Morellis, Assistant Registrar of Voters.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah. So it will be a brief report as I'm still getting back up to speed, but I do want to let you know on a couple of developments. First off, as pertains to our electronic poll book system, the knowing system, I know that they are currently under in the certification process for an administrative approval for an update on their current version of their software, which is in progress. But the intelligence that we've received is that they are going to go into certification shortly in the beginning of the new calendar year for the next generation version of their software. And that is the version that we are expecting to be using in the June election. It's not going to be a drastic departure from what we're using now. It's compatible with you know, all of the same hardware that we have, so we're not going to have to change anything there. And the UI from the voter standpoint is going to remain almost entirely the same from what we understand. It is just going to have some back-end and administrative updates. So just wanted to make you aware of that. Additionally, it's not exactly technology related, but I know it is an item that the commission has been interested in. So we are once again getting ready to take another look at risk limiting audits. There are new regulations that have been developed by the state that are currently in the the review and public feedback. We are expecting that those are going to be approved and become effective very shortly, possibly this month, possibly next month. And once we have those in place, we are going to resume our discussions that we had kind of put on hold previously, both internally amongst our staff as well as externally with the Secretary of State's office, to reassess whether it makes sense for us to move forward with that again at this time. We are expecting that there are there are definite improvements in the current version of the regulations, but there were some sticky points with the last set, and we do want to make sure once this new set is approved that A, it addresses it, and that B, our internal understanding and reading of the regulations are consistent with how the SOS is interpreting those and their intentions with those. I'll open it up for questions with that.
Any questions or comments from the commissioners? I can't see hands.
I don't see any currently.
So my only comment is the good news is our new voting equipment, vote counting equipment, provides for the ability to accommodate risk limiting audits, as I understand.
It does in a hybrid context. So there's I'm blanking on the terminology, but there's two styles of doing RLA. One is a ballot level audit, where you go down to the individual ballot level and you're actually going to randomly select various individual specific ballots to do for the tally. And then the second one, I believe it's called ballot polling audit, but regardless of the nomenclature, what it means is that instead of going to the individual ballot level, we go to the ballot batch level. The first one, the ballot level audit, is preferable because it allows us to be more focused in our random sampling, and we actually end up doing less work, less counting, and less ballot retrieval, and getting the same kind of statistical confidence level in our audit results. Our current system allows for that for centrally tallied ballots. So we're talking about mostly, vote by mail ballots, as well as provisional ballots and some of the other ballots that are tallied in our office. Our system also supports RLA, but just for the second method, the ballot polling method, for ballots that are cast and counted on the precinct scanners at the vote centers. So the vast majority of our ballots, of course, are in that first category, but we would have to do a kind of a hybrid of both of those.
Thank you. That's a very clear explanation. All right. If there are no other comments or questions, which I can't see any.
Again, I don't see any either.
We can move on to item 10. We see if there are any notable committee reports. So Steve, do you have any?
Yeah, based upon the earlier discussion, I need to get together with Swanee on what the previous instance of the ad hoc committee did. So this would be kind of like a different ad hoc committee.
All right.
We can do that, Steve.
Yeah, ad hoc committees are made over.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yep.
So by the way, we can create an ad hoc committee just on the issue of the remote or internet voting or whatever the terminology is, because it's a one subject. It's just not generic technology. It's a specific one. And that would fall under the potential of being an ad hoc committee, which doesn't require approval by the Board of Supervisors that we hold that meeting, because there's no Brown Act regulations that we have to follow.
That
Yeah,
is
and I
correct.
if you saw, Stephanie had her thumb up for that.
Yes, and I
They
did
just-
too. Let's move on from this internet voting thing, okay?
Well, I'd like to be on such an ad hoc committee should the chair decide to form one.
So I would like to form one, and I think three of us still constitute less than a majority, and so we could, so is it procedurally permitted for us to create this ad hoc subcommittee to examine this one subject at this meeting, or did it have to be agendized?
Well, let's go through. I think we're getting a little out of order on the agenda. Let's go through, because this is different than, we're right now, as I understand it, we're on 10A.
Right.
For a committee report relating to the motor voter ad hoc committee. So Steve is going to get together with Swanee. Let's go through the rest of the agenda, and then if you
Okay.
decide to create an ad hoc committee, revisit item, what was it?
8.
Item
All right.
8. Yeah, let's go in order.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie.
Mhm.
Is there a voter outreach committee?
No, there is no outreach committee this time.
Right? And I know there's no technology trend committee report.
No
So
report
let's-
was produced due to county prohibition of standing committee meetings.
Yes. And I'm assuming that the voter outreach committee is a standing committee.
Yes.
So let's move on to item 11, receive the voter office of the ROV reports.
Item A, there was no, the ROV did not have an item on the October FGOC meeting. So there's no report for A.
Thank you. So by the way, for future agendas, unless somebody objects, I would like to have item B folded in with item E as one item of interest, because there's really no reason for them to be separated, in my opinion. So that's something I would like to do for future agendas, unless somebody has an objection to that. But why don't you continue, Shannon?
For item B, receive report from the registrar relating to a staff attendance of conferences during the month of November. None of our staff left the office to attend any conferences. However, I will share with you that we do have several managers going through the election center training, which is still being offered remotely for their training. However, during the month of December, there is the new law conference for CACEO that will be held in Sacramento the week of December 13th, and there are a few of us scheduled to attend that meeting.
Item C?
Item
we already
C
have.
was presented by Evelyn earlier this evening. With regard to item D, we have the campaign finance report included in your agenda packet. Very minor activity, but it is listed there should the commission have any questions at all.
So what strikes me is that there are items that are going back at least 5 years.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
There's a lot of old cases that are still hanging out there that the FPPC hasn't yet made an administrative decision on.
Okay. Thank you.
And for item E, we're happy to certify another election last week, our November 2nd election for Berryessa Union and Los Gatos Union. Both measures did pass with at least a 70-point-something% passage rate. The overall turnout when you combine the two was 27.38%. One was much higher than the other. That was, kind of averaging out the total turnout Los Gatos did have a higher turnout than the Berryessa, but I would assume both districts are happy that their measures had passed. And we're less than a month away from opening the 2.5 month filing period of 3 different periods for the June election. Heavily, certain areas, the mapping division in our office is heavily into, and Virginia's been working on redistricting as far as our office and getting prepared and looking at the draft lines. And the previous issues with the deadlines kind of being moved everywhere, except our deadline cannot move because we must perform for, candidates in the election. But we feel very prepared at this point, and been working on that. So we're on to June. We are reviewing all of our debriefing notes regarding, the recall election. We'll be having one, much smaller one for the November special election, as we always talk about what worked well, what didn't work well, or, just what we want to look at for elections. So we'll be working on those. So things are going well and well into prepping for June.
Can I ask you if it's appropriate to comment upon procedurally what the impact is on supervisor terms of office, those who are now in office because of a change of district boundaries?
So, well, those in office, I don't know if they are affected. I'm sure they're not going to be moved out. Virginia, do you have any comments on the redistricting portion? I understand the draft maps that I guess they adopted today potentially was moving out some candidates that may be applying, and one of them was potentially threatening or talking about potentially suing. But as of the current incumbents, I'm not aware of any issues. Are you, Peter, that I'm not being aware of?
I'd love to make a comment. I'd love to make a comment. My hand's up.
We're not going to miss you, Swanee, so don't worry. So to answer Shannon's question, no, I wasn't asking because of any issue with any current particular supervisor, but just I know that years ago at the federal level, Los Gatos was moved, or my condo was moved out of District 18 into 17 or something like that. So I just wondered what procedurally happens because of the boundary changes, whether supervisors get to finish their current term or whether there needs to be new elections held in the next general election opportunity.
I can address that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have my hand up.
I'll let Swanee go first.
Go ahead,
Thank
Swanee.
you very much, Steve. Yes, I've been very, very involved in the redistricting of supervisorial District 1, and I am absolutely blown away, upset, angry at the yellow stink hanging over the supervisors' boardroom when they introduced a map. Cindy Chavez introduced a map late last night without anyone, no citizens being able to review it. Had that map voted on 3-2 to move forward, that would take 2 candidates, one very viable candidate out of the District 1 supervisors race, and the 2 supervisors, both Chavez and Ellenberg, has publicly endorsed the 2 candidates that remain. So that redistricting situation is appalling, it stinks, and I'm very upset about it.
So you had an audience, so thank you, Swanee.
Now, if I can answer Peter's question. Yeah, it really didn't affect Congress people. You stay in office to the end of your term. but you run in your new district if you happen to, well, Congress, you don't have to live in your district. So for the supervisors that are up for reelection in 2022, if they don't live, if the district has been moved out from under them, then they can't run in that district. The supervisors who were elected in 2020 and therefore are not up for election until 2024, they keep those seats, even if that district has been moved out from under them. And you get the situation, and there's actually a California Supreme Court case that I was referred to by a friend of mine who's on the staff of the Senate Elections Committee. That basically, because this happens to the state senators, for a 2-year period, some people will have 2 state senators, some people will have no state senators. And that's just the way it is. And most of us will have 1 state senator. But that's just the way it is. And so it's the same thing with supervisors. For 2 years, some people will have 2 supervisors and some people will have no supervisor, and the rest of us will have a supervisor.
So thank you for that clarification. That's very valuable. Appreciate it. Any other comments? Questions? All right, so we'll move on.
Do we still qualify as a democracy?
It's only 2 years every 10.
Okay, well, okay.
And it's because of the way the Constitution.
Democracy's on recess.
Yeah, in Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors District 1 race, it is on recess.
All right, so let's move on to item 12. So I have no report. Item 13, are there additional items that we haven't yet discussed that
Mr. Chair
are requesting be on a future agenda?
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that, as we had said earlier in the meeting, that we include on next month's agenda an update of this whole internet voting project. And then, Peter, didn't we have risk limiting audits on our future agenda things? Because I don't think I'm seeing it under item 14.
Well, it was waiting. So the answer is yes, it was in a waiting list, waiting for resolution by the state, et cetera. And so I think Matt addressed it properly, that it may be that it's ready to be back on the agenda.
So could we at least add it to 14 so that we don't lose track of it?
Good suggestion. Thank you.
And then when we get to 14, I have a comment.
Item 14, so are there any other items for commissioners who wish to put them on the agenda, future agenda?
Is this 13 or 14?
On 13.
Okay.
Going, gone.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to item 14 then.
Then on item A, the Ballot Disclose Act, I'd like to suggest we move that to our February meeting, because by the time of our January CACE meeting, nothing will have happened on the Ballot Disclose Act. It's up for a hearing in mid-January, so by the February meeting, we'll have an update.
Sounds good. And item B. So that I think was probably my item. And what I understood is that Registrar of Voters Office created some web pages that explained the security measures that minimize the chance for potential voter fraud. Does the RV office want to make any further comments on that?
Yeah, we are bringing a report in January per your request. I did mention at the last meeting that we did make some very high level information for the public and about our databases and security issues. And I had been pointing that out. And I don't think you were on that meeting when I announced it. So it was just more of a reminder for you that to check out that information, but I was not posing that in place of the January report. So we will bring more information to you next month.
Thank you very much. And the reason I requested it is because I have not a large percentage of my friends who are in the red camp that believe the election was stolen, even in California for whatever reason. And so the more documentation we have for the public, the less we have to fight these groundless claims. So thank you for that. Item C, automatic recounts prior to certification. So that was my issue going back, and that's the whole reason I'm on this commission. But I think we're looking at risk limiting audit as a compromise with the Board of Supervisors, something that they can more easily adopt instead of having to save face by keeping these automatic recounts in place. Editorial comments. So item D, the DMV motor voter form, which we have discussed. Is there any further comment on that one?
I don't have anything. I'm going to be meeting with Swanee.
All right, so we'll move on to item 15. I have no announcements. Do any of the commissioners wish to make
that? Do you want to circle back to item number 8 and talk about creating an ad hoc committee relating to technology trends and this discussion that we had tonight?
Yes, I would. Thank you for that reminder, Stephanie. So I would like to appoint an ad hoc committee to collect information about the pros and cons of the position for the Santa Clara County to take on this RFP that was discussed. And if they're willing, I would like Steve and Craig to be on the ad hoc committee along with me. And if we have a capacity to have any other members, how many members can be on an ad hoc right now?
I think 3 is the most.
Okay, so we filled up. So let me ask if there's anybody else who would wish to be on that committee, that maybe one of us could drop out. I'd
be happy
drop
to
out
step
if
back.
somebody else has a strong interest.
I'd be happy to step back and let someone else be on because I'm going to have my hands full for the next few months related to ranked choice voting.
Yeah, sure.
Later.
So, Chris, would you like to be on in place of Steve then?
I actually have reservations about the creation of the ad hoc committee. If you want to, I'm all for creating it if there is time to weigh in with the supervisors before things are signed. But if we form this committee and their first meeting is after the thing has been awarded, then it's a total waste, in my opinion. Like I think we should create the ad hoc committee once we have the data back. So I don't know how close it is to being signed. If you want to form now and try and lobby or learn more about everything, then that's fine. I just think I would not join that committee because I personally think it's a waste of my time, frankly, to try and lobby for something that's against something that's already been signed.
Sure. So my interest in the ad hoc is not to influence the Board of Supervisors, because I share your view that the horse is already out of the barn or subsequently. And that is to give comfort for the other commissioners to understand the pros and cons of this particular study. It's more because we're going to have, the first week of January, we're going to have our next regular meeting. And so it'll be a subject in that meeting. And so this is only in preparation for that to help people not lose sleep.
I guess I'm not going to lose sleep because the decision is out of our hands. So, if you want to form it, if the study comes out a year from now, I'm happy to form this 2 months before the study comes out. But I just think we're spinning our wheels, and this is not.
So thank you. So how does Craig and Steve feel about postponing it?
Well, I was just going to say that, you don't need to have 3 people. It could be just you and Craig.
It's fine with me.
I would prefer to have 3 people, so what do you think? Craig, do you
Plus-
want to go
plus-
ahead anyway?
Between now and January, you've got the holidays.
Yeah, I know.
So-
Well, I think
So I'm-
we'll probably know a lot more, Peter, after you have a chance to talk to Dana.
Okay, all right, so I'll put that on hold. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, any announcements from any commissioners?
So maybe Jean or Stephanie, maybe she could put that on the future agenda item for January, and
Yeah,
we can dismiss it if there's no news, or we can take it up if there is.
good suggestion. Thank you. Any commissioner announcements?
No,
All right, if nobody has an announcement, I think that brings us, let me turn the page. All right, so item 16 is to
Actually, I have a
adjourn.
quick announcement. I'm so sorry, Chairperson.
Oh, go
Berthiaume,
ahead.
If I can just break in. We have, due to the holiday schedule, the clerk's office we're running like crazy. I'm going on, I hope you all are going on vacation, I will be on vacation when the agenda is due, but I'm going to work very hard to get the agenda as published as much as I can, because I'm going on vacation on Wednesday, December 22nd. The agenda is not due until Tuesday, December 28th. So one of my fellow clerks will publish the agenda, but I really would like to get that out as soon as possible. So Peter, I'll work with you, and just if we could just get as much as possible on the 20th, that would be great. And if you all could be mindful, I know it's the holidays and it's just, yeah, so that's
All right,
great.
that's
But
great.
I'll be back in January, so
By the way, you're doing a fantastic job, Stephanie, so
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
thank you.
yay, we agree.
You guys are great. You have good ideas, and you're on time, and it's great.
All right, so and by the way, I really have to thank Steve for reminding me. I don't know, I was brain dead. For some reason, I'm switching iPhones from the 6 to the 13, and something fell out, and that was this meeting. So can't thank Steve enough for last minute reminding. And by the way, if anybody's not around when it comes time, feel free to go alert them that they're missing the meeting. So with that, if there are no objections, the meeting is adjourned.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Happy
everybody. Happy
holidays.
holidays.
Happy holidays. Take care.
Holidays. Take care, everybody. Yes.